This podcast is not suitable for children or those who are easily disturbed. Spoiler warning for whatever is in the title of this episode.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that The Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible and all other major podcast apps.
Welcome to episode 87 of the Horror of Babylon, where we are discussing The Last Voyage of the Demeter. I am Ryan, and with me as always is Daniel. Say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
And we are back. We haven't recorded for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
We did
We started some shorts, though.
No, yeah, we did. We had vacation time, and we recorded 8 episodes in 2 weeks. And you could probably tell that from the lack of editing on a lot of those episodes. But now we're back. In the meantime, we have done some shorts, and we have a TikTok now.
Yeah.
So you can check out our YouTube shorts and TikToks. And I've been posting them as Reels on Instagram and Facebook. And I've just been posting them as videos on Twitter. On X.
People are actually reacting to them, too.
Yeah.
It's strange to get feedback.
So definitely check those out. That's some new content. We're going to try and keep up with those. It's not the kind of content that we want to make, but if it helps introduce people to the type of content we are making, then
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because we just want to talk about books, really.
Thank you to our patrons, Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan,
the Full Metal Patron. And thank you to Forceman Comics and Gaming, which you can visit at the Morgantown Mall in Morgantown, West Virginia, or the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and say hello to the proprietor, Ronald III, Grampus of Christmas, and a super huge thank you and welcome to our newest patron, Ben the Fourth, the Patron of Hope.
And he loves the name, by the way.
Good.
Yeah.
I love the name. I think it's great. And this is way overdue. He's actually been a patron for close to 2 weeks, but because we recorded all those episodes
in
ahead
advance,
of time. Yeah. And I thought about adding it in myself, but I wanted his first shout out to you to be here to be more genuine. So.
I will say that I do know this guy personally. And he's actually the man who's doing some covers for the short stories I'm currently writing.
Well, fancy.
Yeah, we're collaborating. I finally convinced him to open a Twitter. He hasn't posted any of his art yet.
An X.
Yeah, on X. No, I'm dead naming it. But as soon as he does, I'm probably gonna, post up some links and give him some shout outs, because I do think he has some talent, and I'd like to get him some traction.
If I were Elon, I would have renamed the website Musk.
Oh, that's even better.
It's way better than X.
That's what the X is, because he thinks it ends with an X and not a K.
Musks.
Musks.
Trigger warning, stupid billionaires. Also, the death of a child and the death of the dog, because warning people, the dog dies in this movie, and that seriously upsets some people.
It does seriously upset some people. Trigger warning for racism, I suppose.
Yeah, but a lot less than I was kind of expecting.
A lot less than I was expecting. But I'm pretty sure, I can't remember the exact phrase used, but I think one of the sailors used the phrase darky.
He did.
And I was like, wow.
He said, and he called the main character, I believe, an African darky posing as a doctor.
Yeah.
And it shocked me so much I laughed. And then I was the only person who laughed. I'm like, oh god.
I laughed after you laughed because I realized what you were laughing at.
I mean, that's
It was nervous laughter.
Yeah.
It's like taking... It's not because you're laughing, hey, because racism is funny. It's you're taken aback.
Yeah, exactly.
We both do that in movies.
Because they didn't like acknowledge that he was black for like the first half, and I thought it was like, oh, they're just going to ignore it. That's fine, whatever. That's not what this movie's about. And then he just says that, and I'm like, oh my god. But yeah, that's fine. All right, so neither of us have seen this before. It's a brand new movie. So instead of talking about your history with the film, what were some of your kind of expectations going in, if you had any?
I expected it to be almost what it was. That being a bunch of people are trapped on a boat with a monster that's killing them one at a time. Mm-hmm. That's all I kind of really want. I'll say that's what all I thought I wanted from this movie. Turns out you can do that kind of good, kind of bad. I was expecting a lot more, I guess, references to the book. We got some, but I was expecting a little bit more.
When I first heard about this, I didn't really think much of it. Mm-hmm. And then when I watched the trailer was really kind of like, I felt like kind of a wet fart. Like, this is not hyping me up. This does not look super good.
They used The World as a Vampire song. I can't remember the name of that song.
That didn't even, I remember that bothering you, but that literally didn't even register with me.
It's just so on the nose to me.
As I kind of sat with the idea, after watching all these Aliens movies, I really started to like the premise.
Yeah, like the idea. Mm-hmm. Alien, but with Dracula.
Yeah, like I really, really like that idea. Spoiler, I wasn't a fan of this movie, but actually, this movie was better than I thought it would be.
This movie was about where I thought it was going to be. I wanted it to be better, but it could have been way worse.
I thought it was going to be really bad, but it was actually just kind of bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The vampire's a pure myth, superstition. I may be able to bring you proof that the superstition of yesterday can become the scientific reality of today.
Background, this film is based on Chapter 7 of Dracula, specifically the Captain's Log portion of Chapter 7.
My favorite chapter.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. And like I said, it's not the whole chapter. There's a big description of the storm at the beginning of the chapter, and at the end of the chapter, there's a section where Mina and Lucy go and go to the funeral of the captain. So it's really only about a few pages that they used as a basis for this entire movie. Mm-hmm. This film was released on August 11th, 2023, and it was directed by, and I'm going to try, Andre Overdale, maybe? I don't know. It's some sort of Northern European name. They wrote and directed Troll Hunter.
Fantastic movie.
Wrote and directed Mortal.
Haven't seen.
Directed The Autopsy of Jane Doe.
Pretty good.
Did direct Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, and will direct Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 2.
That's more in line of what I expected from the director of this movie.
I've seen none of these movies, so... Ryan, why do you even have a horror podcast? Shut up. Because I couldn't get Daniel to agree to the Star Wars podcast, that's why.
If we get bored of this, we can do a general sci-fi one.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It was written, the initial script was written by Bragi F. Shute Jr., who wrote Season of the Witch and Escape Room, and then the script was finished by Zach Olekowitz. I'm sorry, I'm sure that wasn't right. This was only Zach's third film. The first two were Fear Street Part 2 and Bullet Train.
I have not seen any of those, so...
Hef told me that Bullet Train was really good, but I just...
Is that the one that we kept saying once for?
I saw the trailer
time, like a million
10 times. Yeah, and I was just like, don't even want to watch it now.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we've talked about that before, how it was like literally every movie we went to. Mm-hmm. They must have had a great marketing budget.
They must have. And it's the same reason why I never wanted to watch Morbius, because I saw the trailer to every movie I saw for like a year.
Yeah.
They had that trailer playing like a ridiculous amount of time. So the concept for this movie was actually in production for over 20 years.
Yep.
So the first writer, Bragi Shute Jr., he had a friend who was working on Bram Stoker's Dracula in 1992. Mm-hmm. And so it's like more like over 30 years.
I'm going to be talking about Bram Stoker's Dracula a lot in this episode.
Wonderful. He actually saw a model that they were creating of the Demeter that they were using for that movie, and that inspired him to write a film based on the captain's log inspired by Alien, which is what this movie is.
Yeah.
It had been in development hell for literal decades until it finally got greenlit in October of 2019, delayed by the pandemic, but finally came to fruition in 2023. So, whew.
One of the horror reviewers I watch on YouTube said that this film felt to him like a one where they were like, "Hey, we need a movie on this date. Do we have any scripts?"
Well, the writer's strike is too recent for that to explain that, but that did make me think of that.
Yeah.
But the writer's strike is within like 2 months ago, so that...
Well, not just because of the writer's strike, but just because they always have to have something to fill in dates, so they look for something that already exists.
One point in time, these various actors were cast in this film and then had to leave for other projects. Jude Law, Ben Kingsley, Viggo Mortensen, so some pretty big names.
Did any of them die?
No, they're all still alive.
Okay, just wondering because it's been 20 years since they...
When Viggo Mortensen dies, you will hear about it. Jude Law, too.
Okay.
But it had a budget of $45 million. It has made, as of August 16th, which is the date of recording, it has made $7.6 million. It is not doing well, but in its defense, it's only been in theaters 5 days.
Hasn't had its international release yet.
Although, with Oppenheimer and Barbie, and there's something else. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Haunted Mansion. Haunted
Mansion also bombed at the box office.
Oh, that sucks. I want to see that.
Yeah. Well, it bombed for a different reason that we can talk about later.
But just regardless, there's lots of things to see right now.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is this $45 million budget, which it did kind of look like it cost around that much.
Yeah, it was pretty.
It didn't look cheap.
No, it was a real ship.
But a lot of times horror movies, the ones that do really well,
have a low budget
because you don't want to risk this is about a mid-budget film. I'd say like high-budget films are more than $100 million. Anything more than 10 to 20 is just, anything below that small. Anything above that's like mid-range.
Yeah.
This is sort of a mid-range budget horror movie, which is always a risk. So, I guess we'll see how it pans out once it opens worldwide. Maybe word of mouth will help it, but I don't think so because the reception has been sort of wet farty.
What I read was there was a mixed critical reception,
and that usually doesn't help a movie.
Yeah.
And that's that. Another story in the classic, infallible 3-act structure. Good enough for Aristotle, good enough for The Simpsons.
Mr. Sislak, I have a feeling there's going to be one more act to this story.
Well, I'm not hanging around for that. 4 acts.
So jumping into structure and themes, the first question I have on here is, what elements of the novel appear in the story?
Fear of the other. Only this time they kind of play with it in 2 directions. A little bit with the racism against the Doctor, not as much as I was expecting. And then Dracula being the invasive species on his way to England.
But they're also a multicultural crew. Like, it looked like the crew of the frickin' Enterprise that you have... There were on that crew. There were English people, Russian people. The first mate was Hungarian. Then you have a black doctor. So there were a lot of people there. And yes, there was a very racist comment spewed, but
it didn't play with the theme nearly as much as I was expecting it to. It was almost just a throwaway line. Yeah, I almost would have just cut that out.
Yeah, like it would be kind of weird to like totally ignore his race. However, that's not what the movie is about. The movie's about Dracula, so I would have been okay with it.
I think they should have either played it up and made it like tie into a central theme,
or just ignore it.
Yeah.
So. It was okay. Yeah. I did expect it to play a much bigger role, but it didn't. Whatever.
Yeah. So.
So obviously, the captain's log, the dates, the narrations, the man who plays the captain does like a voiceover narration where he's writing his captain's log.
Yeah.
The same thing happens as in the book, that Dracula sneaks in one of the crates of dirt, and he's picking the crew off one at a time. And eventually, it works a little differently, but eventually the captain ties himself to the helm. Doesn't work exactly the same way as it does in the book, but more or less the same.
Yeah.
Also, transfusions. Transfusions is a large part of this movie, which is something taken directly out of the novel.
Yeah, because it was new science at the time.
I thought it was a little strange that nobody was questioning him on the transfusions, because in the novel it's like, whoa, what are you doing?
It's like so new.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess they didn't want to spend that much time on it, or they didn't think of that.
Yeah, or they just didn't want to explain it, because that's not what it's about.
It made me cringe because I have a huge thing about needles and blood tests.
I always watch when I've actually been told, hey, can you lift your head? You're in the way. Because I'm like, do it. Do it.
Every nurse has always ever taken my blood is like, oh, you'll be fine, when I tell them I might pass out. And then all of a sudden it's, oh God, please don't pass out. Help, help.
The last time I had my blood taken was actually a student, and she had to stick me 3 times.
Oh my God, I would throw up.
And I watched, every time, the second time, all this blood started pouring down my arm. And she started, crying, oh my God, I'm sorry. It's like, fine, do it again. Do it again.
I know you guys can't see this, but Ryan literally has me doubled over with my balls have shrunken into me hearing that.
It bothers some people immensely. It's like spiders. Some people can't handle spiders, and some people.
I love spiders.
Yeah, and I'm totally fine with getting stabbed in the arm.
I refuse to kill a spider if I can otherwise avoid it.
Yeah, I know. I removed one from our house today without killing it.
I usually just let them live in my room. I'm like, you'll kill other bugs.
Okay, so what elements of the film Alien appear in this story?
Isolation.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest one in a lot of the reviews I've been watching, because I've been trying to, usually I don't want to have other people put words in my mouth, but I'm having trouble describing the feelings I've been having about this movie, and I'm like, can somebody put words to this?
Yeah.
And they're these shots are very reminiscent of the Nostromo, but not done as well. And I'm like, okay, maybe, but I think that they're kind of good, because you have these shots where the boat is big enough to where there's room to move around and it can be a set piece, but small enough to where you feel isolated. It's like you're on the ocean. It's like being in space.
I like the cinematography.
Yeah, so...
I was, my complaints, aside from one massive thing that we'll talk about later, my complaints are not production-wise.
Yeah.
Aside from one thing, which we will get to.
We will get to. It's probably the same thing, but I'll let you say it.
I'm sure it is.
So...
The ship is... scuttled. There's a single survivor. Clemens is Ripley, and not only that, he survives without the general populace knowing he survived. Speaking of that real quick, did you get the sense that they were trying to set up for a sequel?
Yes, but we will get to that when we get to Easter eggs.
Okay.
Because there's one big Easter egg in this movie, and I don't know if you know it.
I don't.
Okay, so when we get to it, I have something.
Okay. Okay. Is this film a good adaptation of the character of Dracula?
No.
Keeping in mind the alien inspiration.
I will give it that if you're combining those two ideas. Then yeah, that's fine.
It's not Dracula, it's a Dracula-esque xenomorph, or a xenomorph-esque Dracula.
And we talked about that whenever we reviewed Dracula and a lot of the adaptations, how we prefer him to be monstrous. I think this goes a little bit too far in that direction.
Yeah.
But...
Alright, well, let's not get too into that.
Because that's later.
We're going to bear the lead and talk about Dracula and scary shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So, for the people who haven't read the book, do you think, which is the majority of the people watching the movie, the whole 12 people who saw this movie, do you think it was a good idea to open on the Demeter's crash and quote-unquote spoil that everyone has died?
I have two feelings on it. You know, my feelings about prequels and when you know what's going to happen. I feel differently about this just because I've read the book so many times. I think that...
Well, it's not a prequel, it's an adaptation.
Yeah, of a single...
It's sort of an adaptation, and it's sort of a spin-off.
But you know what I mean? When you're opening with something where the conclusion's already there.
Yeah.
I don't usually enjoy that. However, if you play it right, it can create an overwhelming sense of dread and hopelessness because you know no one's making it out. That's hard to pull off. I don't really think they succeeded, but I think that's what they were going for.
Yeah.
So I think the idea is fine. I think they just needed to have it refined a little bit more.
So, I'm not so sure I like the execution, but I like the idea, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
Typically with these types of movies, they cater to the movie-going audience and they don't worry so much about surfacing the people who've read the book. This felt like they were actually like making this for people who have read the novel. Like, oh, we don't need to build up to everybody dies. We can just say that at the beginning because anybody who's read the book already knows what they're in for.
I do think that there was like one silly part. It's when the captain or the constable opens up and just starts reading the journal in the middle of a rainstorm. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not waterproof paper.
No.
It'd be one thing like if he like opened up just one page, but then he keeps turning it. I'm like, is he gonna sit there? I thought he was gonna sit there and read like the entire story right there.
Well, I'd rather do that than go on the boat.
I can't go back on this. My horrible British accent.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Let's talk about characters, and we're going to start with our protagonist, Corey Hawkins, who plays Clemens, the doctor. You may know him as Heath from the latter seasons of The Walking Dead. There's actually, I went through everybody's IMDb page, and there's actually like a lot of horror credits among the cast. And also, like, 3 different people from Game of Thrones in this, but I guess, a lot of them are British actors.
Yeah.
So I guess that makes sense. What did you think of Clemens, both in terms of the character and the performance?
I thought he was a pretty serviceable hero. His acting was good, but I just don't have a lot to, like, really say about a lot of these people.
I agree. I think that overall, I thought the performances were pretty good, but the discussion on this movie for me is going to probably focus more in scary shit than in characters.
I feel like there is some sort of meat missing to a lot of people, and it felt like the meat that they tried to give them was very surface level. It's like Doctor Who's faced racism, but it doesn't dive deep enough.
Yeah.
But there's also diving too deep to where it like overwhelms the movie and starts to annoy me.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I had to make a choice, I would have wanted less.
Yeah, and that's what they went for. So I was actually pretty happy with that. But at the same time, I'm like, I didn't get enough of things that I kind of wanted from him.
I kind of cared about him because I really liked how he like took care of the kid, and automatically started caring about him, and I liked how he was very like it was normal practice to throw stowaways overboard.
Yeah,
and I like that he cared about her life. So I like the character, but no, you're right. It's not like we knew a lot about him personally to really get the meat and potatoes from the character. But
it's because Dracula killed all of the livestock and he threw the characterization overboard.
Yep, sure did.
But no, he did a good job. Don't have anything against him. I would watch him in more stuff. Maybe not the sequel that they hoped they could make.
Yeah, I can't imagine the sequel being better.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. Okay, and another one, very difficult name. I think it's Aisling France. I don't know. I'm sorry. Anna, the woman, I really like the concept of her character because it makes total sense that the Romani would like put a person in the box with Dracula for him to feed off of.
Yeah, a little snack pack.
Yeah.
My one drawback to that is like when the Romani were going away and they were doing like the cross, and this is like a minor nitpick as a book fan. And they probably didn't want to portray Romani as like the bad guys.
Yeah.
But in the books, they were totally on Dracula's side.
They were.
That's a nitpick, and I shouldn't feel irked by that, but that was my gut reaction. Was they were basically Dracula worshippers in the book.
Yeah, and I mean, they still weren't exactly good guys.
Great guys.
Because they freaking put that poor girl in that box of dirt.
Yeah.
So.
But it almost felt like to me they were getting rid of their problem as opposed to like helping Dracula.
I mean, they were. Like,
yeah, so. But
I guess, like getting rid of one girl to send your overlord on the other side of the continent. So kind of makes sense. put in the Captain America quote of "We don't trade lives."
Yeah. I love that quote.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Okay, she was decent too.
We're always in total spoiler talk, right?
Always.
Okay, I'm happy they killed her.
Yeah.
I thought for sure that they were both going to survive, and that would have annoyed me so much.
I was annoyed that the one person survived. If 2 or 3 or more, and honestly, if I was gonna let anybody survive, it would have been the kid. But
honestly, I would have killed the kid first.
I would have killed all of them.
Yeah.
But
I also would have killed Clemens.
Yeah, no, I would. All of them, all dead.
Yeah, but again, that's part of the how I said in the opening, that like sense of doom and hopelessness, and then like maybe you trick them into thinking somebody's gonna make it, and then he still doesn't. Like he drowns out in the ocean.
Yeah,
or something. I don't know. I don't know what I would have done differently. But
could have had a vague opening, a vague ending that just shows
him like trying to paddle towards the shore, so you don't know.
Yeah,
that would have been it.
That would have been better. Okay, so let's just keep going. Liam Cunningham, who plays Captain Elliot, you may know him from Dog Soldiers. He's also in Impact Winter, which I've mentioned a couple times. It's a audio drama that's free to Audible members. It's about an apocalypse where a comet strikes Earth and creates such a large dust cloud that it blocks out the sun and creates an eternal winter. Well, turns out vampires were real, and now that there's an eternal night, they have taken over the Earth, and it's about a group of survivors who have like a siege situation in a castle in Scotland.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty cool. That's such a great concept.
Yeah,
I'm canceling my PlayStation Plus this month so I can get back Audible because I want to listen to books again.
Books are good. Books are good. You also have a podcast about books.
Yeah.
I thought he was good, and obviously, like he's one of those character actors. If you look at his IMDb page, you just like scroll down and down and down and down. He's been in so many different things.
He's a good actor. I think his acting was better towards the first half of the film.
Yeah, like
after the kid dies.
That's always a hard thing to portray.
That is a hard thing to portray, but I think that his acting, when he's acting as just not stoic, but as a captain who's trying to get his ship to port and trying to make the best decisions. Yeah. I thought that was a lot better.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, Pet Sematary is like the best horror movie like out there, but like the one thing that I just like don't believe is where Louis Creed, grabs Gage's body and just goes, no! Like it's just really hard to do.
It very much is.
Okay, so the kid, Toby, was played by Woody Norman.
Kid didn't annoy me, and that's pretty good for child actors, because I'm pretty critical of him.
I thought he did all right. I thought he did a pretty decent job, and I hope to see him in more stuff.
My favorite part was whenever he was crying, it wasn't just about his dog dying, but because he failed his job.
No, that's what I was thinking too.
Which is such a great thing, especially like for back then when like you're pretty much an apprentice with whatever your family's doing.
Yeah.
And like you prove you're a man by doing your job and all of that stuff.
Well, if you think about like your grandfather, it seemed like his mom had died, and his dad wasn't around or was dead, and he's been thrown on his who would have been at the time an elderly grandfather.
Yeah.
And his grandfather's the captain of this huge ship. He gets to boss all these people around, and he gave you a job. This is your responsibility. You have to take care of these animals. The sooner
we eat them, the less poop I have to clean up.
That was great.
Yeah, no, this kid was great.
Yeah, I liked him. I did.
And people have probably heard I'm sometimes super critical of child actors, but this one worked for me.
Yeah, he was good. David Dastmalchian, I'm sorry, he played Wojciech, who's the first mate. Most people probably know him as that Russian guy from the Ant-Man movies. He was also in The Boogeyman, which we just reviewed. He was also good.
Yeah.
I really felt bad for him because they took the time to set up that. At first, when the captain said, "This will be my last voyage," I like rolled my eyes because it's like, oh, the cop's going to retire, so of course he's going to get shot. But then I liked how it set up that Wojciech was going to inherit the Demeter and become the new captain.
And it was like so a lot of his decisions were based off of, I need to start stepping up more.
Yeah. But ultimately, he has to make the choice to try and scuttle the ship.
Yeah.
Which is his home, his future, his everything.
I would have liked to see him struggle a little bit more in his final scene against Dracula.
Yeah.
It felt like everyone got taken out super easily in this movie.
They did.
But I would have liked to see him fight a little bit more. Because that just felt like what his character was.
Yeah. But, of course, like you said earlier, it could have also easily have been too much if he had, like, a 10-minute scene where he's trying to battle.
I would have given him, like, 2 extra swings with the axe.
Yeah.
Like, he turns around, sees Dracula, and he just tries.
Yeah.
That's what I would have done. And 1-2 swing, then dead.
Okay, and then we're going to talk about Dracula, but we're going to focus on the performance, and then we'll talk about the design of Dracula in Scary Shit. So Dracula was played by Javier Botet. He was the hobo and the naked witch in It.
Huh.
He was also a xenomorph in Alien Covenant.
Okay.
And he was the crooked man in Conjuring 2.
That Conjuring 2 is honestly not that bad.
Also played creatures in Star Trek Discovery and Game of Thrones.
He's one of those guys.
Very much like a Doug Jones-esque like creature actor. So when I like read his IMDb page, I started thinking about like the mocap performance that this guy was given. And spoiler alert, I'm very critical of Dracula in this film.
Same.
But like performance-wise, as like a mocap actor, like I liked a lot of the physical things he did, like how he was like crouched in a corner and kind of curled up in a ball and then just like slowly stood up.
I think my favorite movements of him is when he was acting like a bat who just woke up. Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever seen a bat crawl and when it's disoriented, like it gets in your house or something and doesn't know what's going on?
Yeah.
It's very much what he acted like. I thought that part was good.
Yeah, I felt like he probably studied bats a little bit.
Yeah.
I liked a lot of the movements he made. If the character wasn't named Dracula, I probably would have liked it a lot more.
I'll kill you all! I'll drive you crazy, and I'll kill you all! I'm every nightmare you ever had. I am your worst dream come true. I'm everything you ever were afraid of.
So let's go ahead and jump to Scary Shit. And we'll start with our typical question before we get more into Dracula specifically. Daniel, was this movie scary?
It could have been, but it wasn't.
I don't know if it could have been for me, but
maybe not for us as much as we know the story.
Yeah, I think maybe it could have scared a kid. I didn't think it was scary at all.
Yeah, I think that there were just some of the choices they made just worked against scare factors. Mm-hmm. And part of that was how bombastic it was when Dracula would show up and kill somebody. The first kill, not so bad, but every single one after that was, like, very bombastic.
Very over the top.
Yeah.
But it played itself to be, like, a very subtle horror movie, but then Dracula himself was very, like, over the top and very violent, and
I'm gonna roar at you.
They felt like the elements of the movie were working against each other because it felt like it should have been a movie where, like, you barely see him, he's in the dark, you get a small glimpse of him, he jumps out, he grabs somebody, pulls them back into the dark.
Yeah.
But really, like, you get full shots of him very early and very often, and you see a lot of action, and you see, like, full kills, like the one guy where he's on the ground and he jumps up and slices his throat open.
I think my biggest criticism of this movie is that, and this isn't fair, but it is what it is. This movie invites comparisons.
It's a Dracula movie.
I think everything that I've seen in this movie, I've seen done better in a different vampire movie.
Yeah.
Bram Stoker's Dracula, I liked the design of Bat Dracula better in that. Full practical effects. You could see the actor's facial movements as he's moving in that costume.
I didn't like either.
I think it looked way better.
Well, if it looked better, it's only because it was a practical effect. I mean, or at least in my opinion. My biggest issue is I just didn't like the design of Dracula. When I first saw him, I thought it was Gollum. And then, like, as he got, like, stronger, he started to look more and more like Azog, who's the white goblin, or the white orc from the Hobbit movies.
I've seen a lot of people compare him to like Orlok or the vampire. Salem's Lot.
Barlow.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he's like, Orlok is like a very creepy looking dude, but he's a dude.
But he could pass. And that's probably another thing. How's this thing gonna hide out in Europe?
He's not.
But they show him in a bar just kind of hanging out.
Nobody who looked at that guy for more than 5 seconds would be okay with it.
And I think that's my problem, is they needed to scale it back like 10%.
I think they need to scale back like 50%.
Probably like 30-40%.
A lot.
I think that him having like a monstrous form would have been okay, and like a more human-esque form, because they talk about how he's a monster that pretends to be a man, but we never actually saw him pretend to be a dude.
Well, that's what I kind of thought was my thought process was that he's going to be in his monstrous form for the entire time he's on the Demeter, and then when we see him afterwards, then he's going to be in his human form. He was the same guy, but he had a hat and a cloak.
Had a top hat on.
Yeah. So that was just kind of what killed it for me. And there were several other things that I wasn't crazy about, but I just couldn't swallow that this was the same Dracula that invited Jonathan Harker to his castle in Transylvania.
And then set up all these deals. Like, how is this person buying property?
If that dude opened his door, or Jonathan Harker would just drop his bags and immediately run.
Yeah.
I understand that this is an alien-esque version of Dracula.
But if you're going to be tying it into the larger Dracula universe, which it did, then you got to take that into consideration.
And I think that I could have accepted it more with a few tweaks, like that being one of his at least 2 forms.
Yeah.
But I mean, he
should have worn a fake mustache at the end.
God. Any criticisms in terms of jump scares, music, the stuff you normally bitch about?
I already complained about how bombastic it gets when he goes after people. The first jump scare was fine, because I think every movie gets one, and it starts off with the sailor's getting closer to this thing that's crawling around on the ground. Then all of a sudden it jumps out, big loud noise. I'm like, okay, that's your one. And then they didn't really do a bunch more jump scares, but everything was
the one with Kid.
Yeah.
It was not. That was kind of the tipping point for me.
I saw it coming, so.
I never see jump scares coming.
Our producer wants to give his input.
He'll just say he saw it coming regardless if he did or didn't.
Yeah.
Well, he saw that coming. I just thought it was going to be... I think the captain was going to open up the whatever, and just see, oh, he is truly dead. And then just cry. I thought that would have been way better. And then they just bury him in the ocean.
They established already that a bite's enough to infect somebody.
No, I'm just saying that would have been better.
Oh.
That would have been more touching, more emotion. It would have made me more emotionally invested in the movie than a stupid jump scare.
I laughed when it happened, so.
And also,
which was probably not the reaction they wanted.
But and at the same time, they also established that you can delay or possibly cure them with blood transfusions, which he did give the kid a blood transfusion.
Yeah, but I expected after he died, I expected him to become a little crawling vampire.
That would have been worse.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. There are parts that I was not. It's not a movie that I'm going to rant and rave about how much I disliked it, but
I've also just seen vampires or people who are infected who might not understand that they're infected emotionally dying in the sun done way better, like how they tried to do at the ending with her. Again, not fair, but you're a vampire media. I'm going to compare you to other vampire things.
I think it's totally fair.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a vampire movie, you should be prepared to be compared to other vampire movies.
Yeah, I think it was. I think somebody burning up in the sun has been done way better in 10 different other movies.
Yeah, well, I just think that the CG in this movie, it wasn't like, by far not the worst CG I've ever seen, but I don't know, with as much money as they spent on it, I wish they would have used more practical effects or like more of a mixture. But I also probably, I would imagine with like all the supply chain issues that we have in this country and all the cost of things going up, the materials for practical effects probably are also much more expensive than they used to be.
Yeah.
So probably a lot of studios push for more computer-generated effects as opposed to practical effects, just as a pure money-saving issue.
Yeah.
Which sucks, but I understand.
Oh my god, are you Stephen King? No, I'm Dean Koontz. Oh.
Alright, so let's jump into Kings and Koontz. My king, similarly to my king from our Alien episode, is the ship. It's the Demeter.
That is also my king.
Yeah, I think it's so sweet. Like, I thought the production on the ship and the sets was just absolutely awesome.
Very pretty.
Yes. And then my Koontz is Dracula.
My Koontz is also Dracula.
All right, we're moving.
Yeah.
That was easy.
Yeah, wow. There we go. Have you already ranked yours?
Yeah, I've already ranked one.
Let me see where you put yours.
Pretty low. So on to rankings.
There it is, number 54.
Number 54, The Last Voyage of the Demeter. Just below Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which honestly I'd put them as pretty similar movies, but I think Mary Shelley's Frankenstein had a few more things I liked in it.
Yeah.
And just above Leon the Professional, I'm sure Leon the Professional is technically a better movie. It's just there's not very much in that movie that I enjoy.
Okay.
So it is my new number 54.
Dude.
Is it better than Fly?
It is better than Fly.
Is it better than Roar?
Probably better than Salem's Lot 2004, but I still think I like Uzumaki more. So it'll be my number 54 also.
I think just the wedding scene in Salem's Lot 2004 is enough to make it better than this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. So that officially makes it...
Or my 55.
Your 55.
Yeah.
That officially makes it my second worst movie of the year so far, and your second worst movie of the year so far, above Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Zombie
Day.
Yeah, Easter eggs. I got a big one. The wolf cane is the cane from the Wolfman. So when you were like, are they setting up a sequel? Some people are like conspiracy theorizing that this is them trying to like Dark Universe again, sneak it in there.
Somebody, the guy Javier Botet, who played Dracula, he was also in that Tom Cruise Mummy movie. I think he played. Yeah. I think he was the Mummy. I'm not.
Okay.
Yeah. I still haven't seen that. I've heard heard very bad things, but
that's the big one. Is 100% the design for the wolf cane. That's the Wolfman's cane.
So they're trying to do another Universal monster,
which
movies.
Also came from like Romani Gypsy, so it's all tying together.
Yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah.
If they do a Wolfman movie, we'll see it. We'll do an episode. Go for it.
But I got excited when I saw the cane because I'm like, get that reference.
I really like the dragon emblem on the crate of dirt.
Yeah.
If they thought he was sleeping in those crates during the day, why didn't they just throw the crates overboard?
Yeah. I feel dumb because I didn't even think.
That occurred to me while I was watching it. It was like, they think he's sleeping there. He wasn't. Yeah. But they thought he was. So they decide to go open them up at night. Why not just wait till day and then throw the crates overboard? Granted, they're heavy, but still.
I know that they didn't know that he needed his home soil to sleep in. Mm-hmm. But that seemed like something maybe, I can't remember the character's name, the woman that she might know.
Anna.
Yeah.
Well, they thought he was asleep in them, so even if they're not going to throw him overboard, they could take them above deck in the sunlight and open them one at a time.
I would at least throw them overboard so he doesn't have his stuff, if nothing else, out of spite.
Yeah, like, so even if he wasn't sleeping in them, you'd get rid of. Well, I guess they did, like you said, they didn't know.
But then what's he? But then what? And then what's he gonna do when he gets over in England? He's gonna be like, "Fuck!
Yeah,
I need to order some more dirt." He writes,
hop on Amazon.
Yeah, like he writes a letter to his Romani and is like, "Hey guys, need a favor."
Sorry, we're out of town. We can't send you your dirt. Have fun dying.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. Homework. What other small segment of a classic novel should be spun off into its own film?
The trial of Frankenstein's friend. I can't remember her name. The one that ends up hanged.
Yeah, the maid.
I would do that entirely as a murder mystery.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. It would require you to know Frankenstein.
Yeah.
But I think that that segment of the book could be cool for like him trying to like find evidence or cover up evidence because he's a horrible person.
So I would do the Book of Marzel Bull.
Okay.
And I'm saying that wrong because I'm really bad with Dwarvish. That is the book that the Fellowship finds in the mines of Moria that chronicles Balin's folk, who are the dwarves who tried to colonize Moria and take it back from the goblins. And I know it's been a long time since you've seen those, but Gandalf is reading from it. It's the drums in the deep, and they're in that room, and then they figure out by reading the book that the dwarves who lived there were attacked by the goblins.
Yeah.
Well, it's in the novel, like it's basically like the captain's log. You get like several pages of just diary entries from that book chronicling where the dwarves tried to set up a colony.
Okay.
In Moria. And if you wanted to, you could lean into the alien thing and make the Moria the Nostromo, the dwarves the crew of the Nostromo, and the Balrog the xenomorph.
All right. Yeah, they came down there to fight goblins and found a fucking devil.
Yeah. The mines of Moria, where no one can hear you scream. Okay.
Yeah, no, I like that one.
Yeah. A question for the listeners. Are you going to go see The Last Voyage of the Demeter, or are you seeing Barbieheimer, or are you seeing Ninja Turtles, or are you seeing Elemental again? Because that movie was sweet.
I enjoyed Barbie. I do think it's a movie that wasn't made for me, but there was elements that were enjoyable, especially when Ken sang. I like his song.
I do like Ryan Gosling.
Yeah.
I would go to it if Emma wanted to see it, but Emma does not want to see it, so I ain't twisting her arm about it.
Yeah. Oppenheimer's also fantastic.
I really want to see it, but it's hard for me to find just like a
3-hour day.
Yeah, and no one else wants to see it.
Yeah. I'll go see it with you again.
We'll have to find a night we're not recording.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I didn't really have anything for further reading because it's kind of a unique beast.
Read Dracula.
Yeah. Read Chapter 7 of Dracula. I did yesterday. Again. All right, upcoming on the Horror of Babylon this next coming Sunday is our next novel episode.
So excited.
We are reviewing an excellent little piece of literature, The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. And then the next Sunday on September 3rd, we will be reviewing the film that is even more famous than the novel it's based on. Maybe the most famous horror film, arguably. It's up there. It's in the conversation.
I'm having a hard time thinking of what its competition would be.
Like Universal Dracula, maybe.
Like it'd have to be something that just kind of like paved the way for The Exorcist.
The first thought in my head was Psycho, but probably not.
Maybe Psycho would at least be in the conversation for a top 5.
I mean, maybe just like Friday the 13th, or because a lot of people, me included, who've never even seen that movie
I can recognize it.
Yeah, Jason, or just like the concept of Friday the 13th.
But a lot of people also recognize who haven't seen The Exorcist, recognize that poster with the light coming down on The Exorcist.
The
music.
Yeah.
That's something we should discuss just as like a thought experiment.
Okay.
Like most iconic horror movies.
Maybe that'll be our pre-show before the Exorcist movie episode.
Okay, I like that.
Okay. And then our next 2 bonus episodes on Thursday, August 24th, the Alien-a-thon continues with episode 4, Alien Resurrection.
Written by Joss Whedon.
All right. And then the next Thursday, which is August 31st, we are going for the second Simpsons Frankenstein parody, which is Frankenstein, which John Frank fans, get ready.
I've been playing the Five Nights at Freddy's series, and I can't get past the first night on FNAF 4 because it 100% requires you to hear a sound cue, and I'm so fucking deaf half the time that I can never recognize it.
Headphones might help.
I tried. The furthest I got was when I played it with Asher because he could hear the sound cues.
That needs help me beat this game.
Yeah.
Do this level for me.
That was fun though.
Yeah, that was great.
But we will be playing that, so that'll be fun.
All right. So
yeah.
Thank you to our patrons: Abigail the First, Breaker of Chains, Mother of Dragons, and
Logan, the Full Metal Patron.
And Ben, 4, the Patron of Hope. Thank you to Horseman Comics and Gaming. You can visit them at the Morgantown Mall, Morgantown, West Virginia, or the Mall at Robinson in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and say hello to Ronald III, the Krampus of Christmas. What Greek god do you think best represents Ronald III? The Demeter.
For Grampus here?
Yeah.
Hades. He'll give you pomegranates when you enter your store, and then you can never leave.
That's funny.
Yeah. Buy more magic cards.
Yeah.
You're my
I was just gonna say Hades because Ron is also voiced by Kelsey Grammer. Just like Sideshow Bob.
I like that.
All right, thank you for going to watch The Last Voyage of the Demeter.
I'm sorry I dragged you to it.
I've been trying to get Emma to watch Star Trek for literal years.
Yeah.
And over vacation, I finally got her to watch the reboot movies, the J.J. Abrams ones. And we were watching the third one, and I had to turn it off to go watch Demeter, and I was like, God, I should just stay at home and watch Star Trek. But we have a podcast to do. We have obligations. It's okay. It's all right.
It also gets us out and gets some experience.
Yeah, it gets us out of the house, which is it's always good. All right. Thank you again to our patrons. Thank you for everybody for listening. Stay tuned for our socials and stay scary.
Stay scary, everybody.
And now for the obligatory socials. Please like, share, and subscribe. You can find the podcast on Twitter at HorrorPod69. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Slasher, and Goodreads. Become part of the Disturbed community by asking for the Facebook group and Discord links. Send dick pics to the Horror of Babylon podcast at gmail.com. Support the show at patreon.com/the Horror of Babylon. In closing, you can let your friends know that the Horror of Babylon is available on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Audible, and all other major podcast apps. Stay scary.